I've never liked buses, especially at night. Something about the dim lights, the smell of stale air, and the weird mix of strangers always gives me the creeps. But when it's almost midnight and you're alone on a deserted street, you don't have much of a choice. That night, I stayed out way too late hanging with friends. By the time I got to the bus stop, it was almost 11:45 p.m. The streets were empty, and the streetlight above me buzzed like it was on its last legs. Every so often, it flickered and cast the sidewalk into complete darkness. I thought about calling a ride, but my phone was at 2% battery. Walking home would take over an hour, and I wasn't about to risk wandering around at night. When I saw the headlights of the bus in the distance, I felt a small wave of relief. But as it got closer, my stomach turned. The bus looked ancient. Its paint was chipped, and the headlights were dim and yellow, like a tired old man's eyes. When it pulled up, its brakes screeched so loudly I flinched. The doors creaked open, and a cold gust of air hit me, carrying a faint metallic smell that made me gag. I hesitated at the curb. Something about the bus just felt wrong. The inside lights flickered, and I couldn't see the driver clearly, just the outline of his head under a worn, slumped cap. A few passengers were scattered inside, sitting like statues. None of them moved or looked at me. Every instinct told me to turn around, to just walk home and deal with the dark streets. But the night felt heavy, like something was watching me from the shadows. The thought of staying outside any longer sent a shiver down my spine. I took a deep breath and stepped on. The moment my foot hit the floor, I regretted it. The inside smelled worse than the outside, like damp fabric, spoiled meat, and rusted metal. The seats were old and torn, with dark, crusty stains that looked suspiciously like dried blood. The floor was sticky, and I tried not to think about what I was stepping in. I found a seat near the back, not too close to anyone. The other passengers didn't even glance at me. They just sat there, staring straight ahead. Their skin looked pale and waxy in the flickering light. One woman had a bruise-like stain on her neck, and her head tilted at a weird angle, like her neck couldn't hold it up. I kept my eyes on my lap, gripping my bag like it was a lifeline. I told myself it was just an old, run-down bus. But as the bus started moving, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd made a huge mistake. The route was wrong. At first, I thought maybe the driver was taking a shortcut. But the streets were too dark, too empty. No houses, no cars, no signs. Just endless, narrow roads lined with trees that twisted like claws against the sky. I tried to check my phone, but of course, there was no signal. I thought about going to the front to ask the driver what was going on, but something kept me in my seat. When I finally worked up the courage to glance toward the driver's seat, I froze. The driver was gone. The wheel turned itself, creaking loudly with every shift. My heart started pounding, and I felt my breath hitch in my throat. I looked around, hoping someone else would notice, but the passengers still didn't move. That's when I saw them properly. Their skin wasn't just pale, it was grey. The woman with the tilted head had a deep gash running from her ear to her collarbone, the edges raw and dark, like it had been there for days. Another man had hollow, black sockets where his eyes should have been, and dark fluid dripped down his cheeks. None of them were breathing. The bus jerked to a stop. I was thrown forward, almost hitting my head on the seat in front of me. When I looked outside, there was nothing. No street, no buildings, no sky, just a vast black void that seemed to stretch forever. The doors hissed open, and cold air flooded the bus. I didn't want to look, but something made me. The passengers were standing now, slowly, creaking like old wood. Their heads twisted toward me, their empty eyes fixed on mine. One of them, the woman with the gash, opened her mouth wide, too wide, and let out a wet, gurgling sound. Her tongue flopped out, swollen and blackened, like a dead thing. I bolted. I ran down the aisle, heading for the emergency door at the back. The sticky floor clung to my shoes, slowing me down. The whispers started then, soft at first like a breeze, but growing louder with every step. They called my name, over and over. When I reached the back, there was no door. I turned around and they were all there, right behind me. Their faces were twisted, their limbs bent in impossible angles. One of them grabbed my arm, its fingers sharp and cold as ice. I felt them dig into my skin, breaking it, and warm blood ran down my arm. The lights flickered, and everything went dark. When I woke up, I was sitting at the bus stop again. My phone said it was 11:44 p.m., like no time had passed. I didn't see or hear the bus again, but my arm was throbbing. When I rolled up my sleeve, there were 5 deep scratches scabbed over, like claws had dug into me. I walked home that night. I didn't care how long it took. Now, whenever I see a bus at night, I get this awful feeling in my stomach. I know it's watching me, waiting for me to get on again. But I won't. I don't care how late it is. Never again will I get on that creepy bus.
Thank you for listening to today's story. If you enjoyed this eerie tale, don't forget to leave a like, and if you crave more chilling narratives, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Until next time.